Poštovani gledalci, dobrodošli u N1 intervju. Vrlo rijetko se desi da evropski zastupnici koji nisu u Evropskom parlamentu ili nisu u komitetima za vanjske poslove pitaju pitanja o regionu Zapadnog Balkana. Pogotovo rijetko se desi da neko postavi tačno pitanje upućeno na samo jednu temu, direktno na temu trećeg entiteta u Bosni i Hercegovini. Takvo pitanje njemačkoj vladi nedavno je postavio zastupnik Zelenih Manuel Sarrazin, koji je želio znati šta njemačka vlada misli o trećem entitetu u Bosni i Hercegovini. Upravo o tome i o svemu onome što trenutno on i njegova partija misle o regionu Zapadnog Balkana razgovaramo sa Manuelom Sarrazinom. Manuel Sarrazin, welcome to program N1.
Dobar dan.
I just said in my opening statement that recently you asked in the Bundestag a very pointed question about Western Balkans, about Bosnia, and about the third entity in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We heard the response from German government to your question, but my question to you is, why have you asked that question? Why the third entity, potential third entity in Bosnia is important for you, and are you satisfied by the answer of the German government?
Well, I think that the growing ethnonationalism in the whole region is actually a threat for stability and security in all the Western Balkans, and specifically in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I see the structure of Bosnia and Herzegovina with the entities and the federation as the core point of the future of the country as a civic state. And this is my conviction. I understand that the crowds in Herzegovina are trying to push their political aims, but I think if the Western states and the European Union is giving too much space for the argument of the third entity, there's a huge fear that over this, actually, Bosnia and Herzegovina as a state at all might fail. And this is quite dangerous.
Now, you're not a stranger to Bosnia and Herzegovina. You have come here and visited Bosnia several times. And in recent times, you said on the other issue, which is issue of migrations, that the migrants don't want to come to Bosnia. They want to come to the European Union. But when we look position of the European Union, when it comes to that question of migration here and general relationship with Bosnia and Herzegovina, it doesn't sound like they're very much interested in resolving all the issues, political, ethno-national migrations, and everything else.
I think that we need a new push in the European Union for a new awareness and new engagement towards Bosnia and Herzegovina. But I think that also we should look for new paths, not only checking out the old ways of trying to talk only with the so-called leaders of the ethnic groups. Let's talk more about local issues. Let's talk more with those ones who are at the ground level, bottom up, engaged, and more successful than we sometimes recognize over here in Europe. And yeah, I think this is really, really important. Regarding the migrants, it is, I think, kind of a problem that on the one hand, European Union doesn't want to welcome migrants themselves. We are not willing to take some of the burden out from Bosnia and Herzegovina and bring some of the migrants at least to European Union. On the other hand, we say, please make the structures in Bosnia as well as possible. I think both is functioning only if you do both sides. If you're on the one hand taking over some of the migrants, and on the other hand, of course, you need to cooperate with the Bosnian authorities to make the situation that people are living in better.
Have Germany missed the chance to do more in Bosnia and Herzegovina during its presidency over the European Union? Because we haven't seen so much action from a German foreign ministry and a German presidency in general during these 6 months when it comes to the general region of the Western Balkans, but also to Bosnia and Herzegovina in particular.
Well, actually, before the presidency started, I was accusing our government in having not enough ambition towards the Western Balkans, and of course also towards Bosnia and Herzegovina within the presidency. On the other hand, after, in this presidency, the first part of the pandemic and the first part of the European reaction on it fell timely, it would be a bit naive to think that there was much more time for solving other issues. But what I have to say is that the question of vaccination and the delivery of COVAX vaccines towards the region and towards Bosnia, European Union should have been much better prepared and much more helpful also to the region. I think this is from a geopolitical interest, and the state of art, how it's done until now, is not in Europe's interest.
But when we look Europe at the moment, Germany is the strongest country in Europe beside France. But what we saw is that France was blocking a region of the Western Balkans on the road towards European Union, and Germany, who was presiding, didn't do anything to move that further. But we are seeing now the initiative that the new High Representative to Bosnia and Herzegovina should be Mr. Christian Schmidt, who's a member of Bundestag from CDU-CSU. So is that late showing that the Germany wants to do something here, or it's just a political game?
I hope that this is a signal for new engagement of Germany in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But of course, this has to be embedded into European strategy, and it must be more than just changing one person or some personnel question. But I think it might be a chance getting the German government more also in the situation that they have to deliver more by posing this personnel.
You know Christian Schmidt, I believe, from Bundestag. Do you think that he could be the right person to solve some issues here in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Yeah, I mean, actually, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, you always know only after if it was the right person or not. But I think he is a competent guy. He knows the region for a long time, and I would give him a chance, and him and Germany, so to speak.
We have a large diaspora which lives in Germany for not years, but decades, since former Yugoslavia. But we don't see that much action from here, from Bosnia and Herzegovina, from our leaders, those ethno-national leaders which you mentioned at the start. What would be your advice to them when it comes to Germany and to German political world? What kind of action they should take to reconnect with the diaspora, but also to influence German political atmosphere regarding a region, especially Bosnia?
Well, you mean what I would recommend to Mr. Dodik, Mr. Komšić, and
Mr. Izetbegović?
Or you mean more, I should ask what I should recommend to Mr. Čović and Mr. Dodik?
Well, all of them, including Mr. Izetbegović, but also civic leaders in civic parties in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
I think there are two main routes. First is we need good news from Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is important to deliver good news. Second is good news is not if you deliver the message of a new increase of ethno-nationalism and deals between the leaders of the ethnic groups or on the expenses of other ethnic groups. And this is what I think is really important. If you deliver just a deal, for example, in a third entity, just to show up, yeah, we have a solution which the guys are agreeing with, without really solving the problem of Bosnia, which is that the civic society is diminished too much under this kind of sharing, of power sharing between these ethnic groups and the leaders, then it will be only a not sustainable short run. And so we need good news, but it must be sustainable good news, and the good news must face the biggest potential of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which are the people. Doesn't matter what kind of ethnic a passport or feeling they have, and doesn't matter where they live. And it matters that they also can have the feeling that they can stay in the country to develop.
Let me ask you something about the region of the Western Balkans, because I know that you follow the region very well. How do you see the situation in Serbia? Because we are seeing now that the Serbia is in fight, if I may say that, with European Parliament. There is no dialogue with opposition. Medias are under attack, especially my colleagues in N1 in Serbia, but also we have countless other problems related to the Serbian political world. There is parliament without opposition, and also countries not moving towards European Union, but also has a very good cooperation with Russia and China, especially during this pandemic crisis.
So in general, I think that we should be critic but constructive with the real track record that the Serbian government and president had in the last years. And I think that the European Union has been for a long time too positively and not putting the right incentive towards Serbia and being clear in the critics as well. On the other hand, I think that regarding the pandemics, we cannot really accuse the Serbian side in doing what they did, because actually Europe was not delivering. So, of course, it's also always a question of propaganda. And we have to face that Russian propaganda and also the Serbian public relation management is sometimes better than those of the European Union. But regarding the vaccination, the weakness of the European Union was the invitation for other players in playing this game. I would not accuse Serbian government too much on this, except of course on some media hints which they made, which perhaps were not that nice.
How do you see the dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo? Because now we have a former Slovak Minister of Foreign Affairs, Miroslav Lajčák, as a key European player in this. Could we see the resolution of that problem very soon? And could we see more German influence in the region when it comes to that very particular question?
Of course, we could see a resolution very soon, because actually this conflict is not difficult to resolve. It would be quite easy if all sides had the real political will to do what in the end it's needed. Yeah? And this is, of course, the aim of the Brussels Agreement was that Kosovo has a safe status. And if you do a legally binding agreement between two parties, of course, you have to accept also the legal status of each other. So, of course, we could. But I'm in sorrow that I'm not so sure that we will. And I think it's the right idea to increase the speed of the talks and to bring the people together, and also to give Mr. Kurti and the new government in Kosovo a chance to check out the papers and try to come into action again, come into progress again quite fast. Mr. Lajčák told us that he wants to do that in the spring, and I think we should support that. And I think Germany should be supportive to both sides in the process. To that extent, both sides are willing to use our facility we can bring to the store. And yeah, of course, I think it's important what is the German signal. And but also there, I think there's a huge chance with the new Biden administration that Europe and Germany perhaps can have a more common approach to this question with the US again.
Now, how do you see the situation in Montenegro? Because we are seeing some very disturbing moves from this new coalition government, which is more towards Serbia and more towards Russia. There is a lot of bickering between the government and the European Union, and also they were talking about exit from NATO. How destabilizing that could be for the region of the Western Balkans?
I think that it is important to follow the path of the new Montenegrin government quite closely. And I think that the foreign and security dimension is important. And I think that continuity and stability is the first and the most important issue there. On the other hand, a new government also has the chance to deliver. And I understand that after the long rule of the family Djukanovic in the last decade, people also just wanted a change. And so we are following this closely. And I think that the only right place for Montenegro is inside the NATO and with a clear path towards the European Union. But I think that this is also a clear conviction in the majority of the Montenegrin society. And I don't see a path to the European Union for Montenegro can be successful by debates over the future of the country in the NATO.
How do you see the role of the European Union in the Western Balkans? Because we have at the moment a commissioner who comes for enlargement, Commissioner Vanhelyi is coming from Hungary, and Commissioner for Foreign Affairs and Security, Mr. Borrell, is coming from Spain. On the one side, we have someone who's not that much invested in enlargement policy. He took more than a year to come to visit Sarajevo. On the other side, we have Borrell, who's dealing with the issue of Kosovo. And of course, even if they say that the commissioners are not representative of their countries, he is from Spain, and there is a Catalonia, and that could be related to Kosovo. So could we expect that we will see a stalemate here in the region during this commission, or we could see some bigger moves towards European Union by the region?
I think that Mr. Borrell is not a guarantee nor for the one nor the other. I think he will be open and helpful for positive progress, but I don't think that he will be the person whose first point on the political agenda of his life is solving Pristina-Belgrade dialogue. So we have to be aware of that the region and partners of the region need to be active. And to be so frank and so clear, I really think it's positive that the Croatian government is promoting a stronger outlook of the European Union to the Western Balkans. But it is important that this is not the backdoor for constitution changes in Bosnia, which are, from my view, dangerous. And I would not accuse the Croatians so much in being active and perhaps also having some own interest inside this. But it is important that other partners like Germany and also France are within this gap. We can accuse Mr. Orban on having the wrong agenda, or the Croats on having the wrong agenda. We can accuse Mr. Janda, and we can all make this blame game all the time. But actually, at least they have an agenda in the region. And so the only right answer is to be clear on their own agenda in the region. If Germany has a strong own agenda with high political backing, we will not have to quarrel too much or be saddened about others whose agenda might be perhaps not ours in the region, because Germany is the strongest and most important player in the region. Also, if you look to Brussels and debates over the region.
Now, let's move to a broader picture. Situation with COVID-19 in Europe is not good. Chancellor Merkel has a sudden U-turn on Easter lockdown. She backed away from that. Also, vaccination, it doesn't go very well in the European Union. How do you see the situation in Germany with COVID-19 at the moment?
We are in a really, really difficult situation, and our population is quite, now there's a fatigue. We have quite a chaos regarding the rules between the different federal lenders. And the government seems to be not capable in the moment of handling this well. But I'm confident that within the summer times, when the problems with the delivery of vaccines to Germany will be solved because of higher capacities in production in Germany and in Europe, I hope that this impression will get significantly better, but it's really, really necessary.
Who's to blame for this situation? Your government in Berlin or European government, European Commission in Brussels? Because many are saying that Ursula von der Leyen, who's also a German politician, is responsible for this situation.
I think that, of course, the Commission did not everything perfect and the member states did not everything perfect. And perhaps it would have been better to give a higher mandate, a bigger mandate to the Commission regarding the ordering of the vaccines. But for Germany, I want to say one thing. Our political system has been developed in the way to always create compromise so that you do not have radical political solutions. This is the kind of setup of the whole German system after the Second World War. And in the most of the crisis, this was a guarantee for Germany being successful. And we really drove really, really well through a lot of crises with exactly this setup of our political system. But perhaps in this pandemic, it is not all the time, in the second wave at least, the best way to solve it. In the first wave, exactly this kind of checks and balances was helping us for being a role model. But when you need sometimes fast and radical answers, even if they're perhaps not perfect, the German system is set up with good reason for never finding them. And so I think that to a certain extent, the failure of Germany is because of our political system, which is this time not suitable perhaps in this wave, but which has brought us through a lot of crises and also through the first wave of Corona quite positively. So we should be clear and critic, but not condemn.
Before I move to the geopolitical scene, I have another question for you, and it's very interesting, especially here for us in the region. According to the last polls, your party, the Green Party in Germany, is the second party in the polls in Germany, just after the CDU-CSU coalition. That's 27 to 21, if I'm not wrong, and SPD is way below you with 17% in the last polls. Many are saying that this is showing discontent in the German population, but also your rise, because on the last election, Greens have the, if I'm not wrong, 8.9%. So that's about 12% rise over the 4 years. And many are saying that there is a great possibility that Greens will be able to form a coalition and take a power in Germany on elections in September, when Angela Merkel should leave chancellorship, and as in this moment is expected that the CDU-CSU leader will be Armin Laschet, who's the new leader of CDU. What is your expectation?
I think the situation in Germany is really volatile, unstable, and there's no serious prediction possible what will happen. It is quite long time still. The situation with the pandemic is not clear, and also the personnel not yet present to that extent. And the Greens have won a lot of polls in the last decade. Usually before elections and sometimes even the week after, we had much better polling than the ballot brought it at the election day itself. So I would be careful. On the other hand, it's also possible that the Greens see in us the one and only serious alternative who might govern the country and also bring change. So I think it's not possible to predict what will happen. And we, but also Western Balkans, will have to cope with whatever the outcome. My personal opinion is that whoever will be in government, it is important to strengthen those people inside these parties who are engaged with your region, because the future and the sake of the Western Balkans is the key question for the future of Europe.
You said that strategic question for Western Europe. The transatlantic relationship between United States and the Western Europe was badly damaged over the last 4 years during the presidency of Donald Trump. Now we have a new president in the White House. What do you expect from Joe Biden when it comes to foreign politics and also when it comes to security policy and NATO?
I think that the signals from Washington are quite positive. And of course, the US administration does not always have the same agenda like the Europeans, but that Joe Biden and Mr. Blinken are putting a clear pronunciation on the European neighborhood in a pro-European manner, and also that they are thinking about cooperation with European security and defense projects. This is a good signal, and we should try to use this momentum because it might not last too long.
But that momentum could be, as you said, endangered by one thing, and that's a Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is coming to Germany. And there is a lot of pressure on Blinken in Washington and in the Western world to do something regarding that in some sort of sanction or other action. Could that endanger the transatlantic relationship, or will he just look through the fingers to Germany this time and he will say, okay, we're gonna slap your fingers, but we will let you do the thing?
Actually, I don't know. If you know somebody who knows, please let him or her call me. I think that Nord Stream might be a big setback for the credibility of Germany in exactly this moment of the possible beginning of a new momentum.
Let me ask you this for the end of this interview. How do you see the role of Russia, China, and Turkey, not only here in the region, but also when it comes to the European side? Because we know that Russia is trying to make influence in the Western Europe. China is also trying to make influence in Southern and Eastern Europe through the Belt and Road Initiative. Turkey is making problems in the Eastern Mediterranean. Those are questions will be on the thoughts of every European politician over the next several years.
I think that all of these players doesn't want our success in the Southeast European region, in the Eastern Mediterranean, and in the Eastern Partnership. And we should not, we should know that we cannot afford too many weaknesses and mistakes on our side, because it will make them stronger even.
Manuel Sarrazin, thank you so very much for this interview.
Hvala.
Poštovani gledalci, bio je ovo ekskluzivni razgovor sa Manuelom Sarrazinom, zastupnikom Zelenih u njemačkom Bundestagu, čovjekom koji je nedavno postavio pitanje o Bosni i Hercegovini, o trećem entitetu. Sada smo čuli i njegovo mišljenje detaljnije o tome zašto je pitao i zašto je važan treći entitet potencijalno u Bosni i Hercegovini za njega i njegovu partiju. Ostanite uz program N1. Doviđenja.